Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Marty Ross, and tonight's another Conversations with Marty Ross MD. As you know, this is a webinar where we talk about Lyme disease. I'm interested to see what you have in store for me tonight, and I will see what kind of themes you get into for the evening as well, too. For those of you that are coming back again, I'm glad to see many familiar names on my message board here. I know we have a number of new people tonight, too. So for those of you that are new, there's a couple ways you can participate. Number one, you can listen to the response I give to questions that other people write. The other way you can participate, though, is to write questions to me. And the way you do that is over on the bottom side of the right-hand side of your screen is a chat box. And you can write your question to me using that chat box. The thing I ask is that the questions are brief. This format doesn't really work well for long questions. And secondly, don't hit the enter key as you write your question until you write every word down. If you try to use the enter key to create paragraphs, what it actually does is send a whole separate question to me, and it gets very complicated to follow from my side. So tonight is one of two webinars we're doing this month. I'm going to do one tonight and then one next week. And then the week after that, I'm actually going back to see my mom for a 1 week early before Thanksgiving back in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So I won't be with you. And the weekend after that is Thanksgiving, so I won't be with you then too. So we got two of them. Tonight, just so you know, I'm gonna do this as long as I can, but I've been kind of fighting a headache here this evening, and that's kind of going either way. We'll see how it goes, okay? But I'll see if I can hang with you as long as I can here tonight and see what we can get out for you. So I am creating a recording of tonight's webinar. And in the morning, somewhere between 9:30 in the morning, 9 to 9:30 a.m. in the morning, I plan to send that out to you. When I send that out to you, I usually create a synopsis of it so you'll be able to see what we talked about, and hopefully it makes it a little bit easier for you to hunt and peck and get through the video to find the sections that you want to see again. All right. So I think without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get started here. For those of you that are in the live version, you will actually be able to see the questions because I post them on the screen. They don't show up in the recorded version, though, so I will wind up reading them so that in the recorded version, people can see what we're talking about as well, too. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. Hello, James. Let's see. What has your patient's experience been with the booster dose of the mRNA vaccines? Have they found side effects less, the same, or more than dose 1 or dose 2? What have the side effects been with the booster dose? Have any patients suffered setbacks as a result of the booster dose? Thank you. So, James, I don't have enough experience. I've had only a couple of my patients that have gotten the booster doses, and that's not enough for me to say one way or the other. So in general, most people with Lyme should not qualify for the booster dose. Now, I want to clarify something because people with Lyme all think that they're immunosuppressed, okay? And so therefore, they think they fall in that group of people that should be qualifying for boosters because of immunosuppression. But I want to clarify, it is true when you have Lyme that your immune system has a hard time fighting Lyme. That does not mean that everyone with Lyme is universally immunosuppressed. Okay, so most people with Lyme have as great of a same chance of having difficulty with the flu virus as anyone else does, for instance. Okay, so but if you are a person that truly has immune suppression beyond just your difficulty with your immune system to fight Lyme, and by that I mean immune suppression would be you get every virus that comes along, for instance. Then you might consider falling into that category. Other people that qualify for the boosters are healthcare workers, people age 55 and older, I believe, that have chronic health problems like diabetes, high blood pressure, et cetera. They don't put Lyme in that category, okay? And then people that are 65 and older and people that are in assisted living facilities. So those are people that would qualify, but that doesn't mean the majority of people with Lyme are qualifying, okay? So anyhow, I don't have enough experience yet to be able to report back on that. All right. Thanks for that question, James. Okay, let's see. Dr. Ross, if a person's lips start drying, cracking on both top and bottom lips, turning black, what would you suspect? This started happening recently, and I don't know if this is part of the Lyme and co-infection symptom picture, or there might be some other issues or deficiency I need to pay attention to in addition to Lyme. I'm not on any prescription medicines. So I would not call this a common thing that happens in Lyme. In fact, I haven't seen it happen to anyone, and especially the lips turning black in all of my years of experience of managing Lyme disease. So I would be looking at other possibilities. And to be honest, off the top of my head, I don't know. I haven't had a situation like this occur before. I mean, the dryness would have me wanting to make sure that you're hydrating adequately, and you might even be using moisturizers on your lips as well, too. The black color, I'm not sure what to make of that. I know you're not on any prescription medicines, but keep in mind some herbs and supplements can turn things color as well too. So if you are on supplements, you might even want to just temporarily suspend using them to see if that takes care of the black color as well too. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Kay. Hello, Dave. Let's see. I've heard that taking glutathione as a supplement can shut down your body's ability to make its own glutathione. Have you heard this? Should you take NAC instead of glutathione for this reason? Also, I heard that the FDA is trying to ban NAC. Do you think this will actually happen and you will no longer be able to purchase NAC? So on the last question, I've heard of these rumors too, but at this point, I'm having no trouble getting NAC. And when I do my own investigations to see if they actually are going to be pulling it, I don't see it anywhere. So I'm not sure if that's going to come to be or not. In terms of, so everyone, glutathione is the master antioxidant that is made in every one of our cells. And in every one of our cells, its responsibility is to fix damage that happens as a result of chemical reactions in our cells. In addition, it's made in larger amounts in liver, and in the liver, it's used to help as part of our detoxification reactions at the liver level. It's also useful in nerve tissue because it helps repair nerve injury as well, too. In Lyme disease, I like using it for support of liver detoxification. I like using it as a very strong antioxidant that can decrease oxidizing agents that signal white blood cells to make inflammation chemicals called cytokines. It's cytokines that give you most of your Lyme symptoms. So glutathione can help lower that. I'd like using glutathione as part of my steps to help fix energy factories called mitochondria. That's one of the things that I wind up doing for that. I like using glutathione when I have somebody that has liver inflammation from the medicines that they're on to help support the liver and bring down that inflammation as well, too. Okay, so there's a number of reasons I like using glutathione. Now, in terms of your question, and then N-acetylcysteine, NAC, N-acetylcysteine is one of the building blocks for glutathione. It's one of the substances that your body uses to produce its own glutathione. All right, so as part to your first question here, would your body stop making its own glutathione? Probably not. So first of all, when we're using it in these disorders, we're using it probably because your body is naturally exhausting more than it can actually make. All right, so if you have a lot of damage from Lyme going on and cells are constantly trying to fix themselves, they're going to deplete their glutathione supply. So when I supplement glutathione, it's because I know the body is taxed in its ability to make it and to keep up with the demands, and that's why I'm using glutathione. Okay. I am not aware of any glutathione, what we call feedback loops, where someplace in the brain perceives your glutathione levels and sends out signals to the part of the glutathione producing areas of the body to stop making glutathione. I'm not aware of anything like that. Now, that's true. That happens in hormone systems, but not necessarily in glutathione. In terms of my preference, I think you can either use N-acetylcysteine or glutathione. N-acetylcysteine, if you use it, will help increase production, natural levels of production. But there are situations where you want to use more than natural levels, like when you're trying to get your cytokines down. So my preference is actually to use glutathione as a supplement as opposed to doing the N-acetylcysteine, because you can even get higher levels, and that can have better results at lowering cytokines. If you have a Herxheimer reaction, maybe be more beneficial helping moving out some of those toxins if you are full of toxins as well too. Okay, all right. All right, those are my thoughts on it, Dave. Good luck to you. Thanks for the question. For anyone that wants to know more about glutathione, let me do a quick screen share here. All right, so this is my website, Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD. This is the online Lyme guide, and take a look at my section on detoxification. And then in terms of glutathione, take a look at this article here called Glutathione, the Great Fixer. This is where I review common things that glutathione can do and why supplementation can be useful as well too. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Hello, Eileen. Let's see. Thank you, Dr. Ross, for all you do for us. You're welcome. I have learned so much from these webinars. 2 questions. 1, I saw your info about the fibrin nest. Do Lyme and co-infections actually cause blood clots when they attach to the interior walls of the blood veins? I had one that is now pretty much resolved. And 2, my anticardiolipin antibodies registered 51 at the end of October. What can I do to get them down? All other tests registered in normal range. Thanks again. All right. So number 1, so everyone, fibrin and fibrin nest, let me talk about that real quick. So our blood has in it protein, which is called fibrin. And fibrin is made as part of our, is used as part of our body's ability to form blood clots. So fibrin is a protein that mixes with platelets and can form blood clots, basically, right? Now, where fibrin is an issue in Lyme is actually for a couple reasons. Number 1, when people have chronic infections, in some people, one of the inflammatory reactors in the body is actually the body will make more fibrin. So you can get more fibrin, all right? And if you get increased production of fibrin, it eventually can kind of thicken up the blood or lead to what I call sticky blood. So that blood can have a hard time flowing into the real narrow blood vessels, for instance, okay? A second thing that can happen with fibrin is recruited by some of the germs. So your Bartonella and your Babesia, for instance, not Lyme appears, but probably more Bartonella and Babesia. And the fibrin mixing with Bartonella or mixing with Babesia can form plaques that attach to the lining of your blood vessels. Right. Now, these plaques are not clots, though, okay? They're basically germs mixed with the fibrin protein, versus a clot would have platelets, which are a type of red blood cell, and the fibrin. So they're different situations, okay? Now, can Lyme itself lead to hyper-coagulation where you actually have clot formation? I have not seen that. Now, I know that your blood can get thickened up, but does that actually result in people having greater chances of getting blood clots? And in all the patients I've treated, I have not seen that situation occur. If I have a person, though, that is really crampy and achy, because it looks like maybe their tissues just aren't getting enough blood flow because of the thickness of this blood, I might put them on lumbrokinase and see, do they get less achy and crampy, okay? And lumbrokinase is an enzyme that we can use to break up the fibrin. You would take it as a 20 milligram pill. You want to take it on an empty stomach. You want to have no food or medicines or supplements in your stomach beginning 1 hour before you take the lumbrokinase up through an hour after you take the lumbrokinase, okay? All right. Now, in terms of these fibrin nest or plaques, they are something that can block your ability to get over Babesia and get over Bartonella. Because in these plaques and in these nests, the antibiotics have a hard time getting through. Your antimicrobials have a hard time getting through. And the immune system has a hard time getting at the germs as well, too, all right? So what I've started doing with that is if I've got somebody that I have on a Babesia or a Bartonella treatment, standard treatments, and we're about 2 months, maybe 3 months into treatment, and I'm just not budging them at all, or it's a person that we've tried multiple things, and I just cannot budge them at all, I'm starting to add lumbrokinase into those treatments at 20 milligrams 2 times a day to see if we can start clearing some of these plaques and fibrin nest as well, too. Okay, so that's kind of the situation that I'm doing. Now, in terms of your second part of your question, so anticardiolipin antibodies are antibodies that can be elevated in inflammatory conditions. If they are elevated, they suggest an increased chance of getting blood clots. Okay, so an autoimmune illness can trigger these anti-cardiolipin antibodies. They can often be seen in lupus, for instance. Okay, so what do you do about it? Well, there isn't anything directly to do to lower them other than get your inflammation under control. And so if it's Lyme triggering your inflammation, get your Lyme under control. If it's Bartonella triggering inflammation, get your germ inflammation under control. Okay, that's the best thing that I know to deal with that. Okay, all right. Thanks for that question. Good luck to you. Hello, Lynn. Let's see. Can you recommend any supplements to alleviate anxiety or high levels of emotion? Yeah, I can talk about a couple things. So number one of the supplements that I like to use in people that have anxiety there's a couple I like to use. Number one, either L-theanine, or I also like to use something called 5-hydroxytryptophan. So let me talk about both of those, okay? So L-theanine is an amino acid-like substance that's found in green tea. It's not caffeine, though, okay? So I want to be clear about that. But L-theanine gets absorbed into the brain, and in the brain, some of it is converted to a chemical called GABA. And GABA, our brain is full of GABA receptors. And if you give more GABA to a GABA receptor, it can help soothe things down, basically, okay? All right. The other action that L-theanine has in the brain is it can calm agitated electrical nerve impulses along the nerves as well, too. So it has two effects, all right? So if you're going to give that a try, I have people start at about 100 milligrams, or not at about, but at 100 milligrams 3 times a day. And you can work up all the way to 300 milligrams 3 times a day. You just give it a try, all right? Now, don't go all the way up to 300 milligrams 3 times a day right away, because it may really make you sleepy, okay? But you could try that. It would be something you would take on a regular basis, not on an as-needed basis, okay? All right. All right. The other thing you could do is to take 5-hydroxytryptophan. Tryptophan is a building block for serotonin, all right? And so serotonin, if we get more elevations of serotonin in our brains, that can help manage anxiety too. So the corollary would be that in prescription medicine, sometimes the things we use to manage anxiety, to keep a lid on it, are antidepressant medicines of the family called the SSRIs, for instance, okay? So Celexa, Zoloft, those medicines can help manage anxiety because they also lead to higher levels of serotonin. The way they lead to higher levels of serotonin is they limit your brain's ability to break down the serotonin that it makes, okay? So you get higher levels because it's not being destroyed. Versus tryptophan and 5-hydroxytryptophan basically lead to greater production of serotonin, all right? And that, if you're going to use that for anxiety, you usually have people start at about 100 milligrams twice a day of that. And you can even go up to 200 milligrams twice a day on that, okay? And then a third thing I should mention is valerian root. So valerian, via officinalis, valerian root, which many of you may think of as being a sleep medication, actually binds to that, that GABA receptor I told you about. It's actually known as a GABA benzodiazepine receptor. Benzodiazepines would be things like Valium, Ativan, lorazepam, Xanax. Those are benzodiazepines. It so happens that valerian binds to those same receptors too. And it can be something that might get your anxiety under control a little quicker than the L-theanine and the 5-hydroxytryptophan might. Okay, so those are some things to think about trying. Okay, all right. Good luck to you, Lynn. Hello, Rich. Let's see. Thanks for doing these webinars. You're welcome. Let's see. They have been a huge help to me. I'm glad to hear that. Let's see. How long should you stay in the BPC 157? Like a month at a time, or is this something you can stay on indefinitely? Do you think BPC 157 can help with digestive health? So everyone, BPC 157 is a peptide that is made in the stomach. Okay, so peptides are strands of amino acids that are less than about 40 or less amino acids put together, versus proteins are sequences of amino acids of about over 40. Okay, that's different. So think of a peptide as being a mini protein, basically. There's a variety of these peptides that are made in our body, and they have different effects. This one called BPC 157, also known as body protection compound, it can have a good effect on healing an injured gut, like leaky gut, may help with digestive issues as well too. There are other things that it can do. It seems that it might help improve mitochondria function. It may also help repair tissue injury, like your nerves and your joints, for instance, okay? And then finally, it can help rebalance immune system imbalance that sometimes occurs in people that have chronic Lyme disease. So specifically, there are two general parts to our immune system, something called Th1, something called Th2. Okay, Th1 inflammation would be made up of the white blood cells that actually attack a germ, your T white blood cells that attack a germ, for instance, okay? And then your Th2 system would be made up of your B white blood cells. They're the ones that make antibodies. And then also your mast cells, your allergy cells, and any cells that are involved in autoimmune attacks. Those are Th2, all right? Now, these are supposed to be in balance. If you get too much Th2, that can lead to suppression of Th1, and then you get less ability of your white blood cells to help attack germs, for instance, okay? All right. So we want to have balance between those two. And BPC 157 is a peptide that may have some ability to balance these two out, all right? Is there any length of that you can be on it? No, I mean, you can keep using it indefinitely. There's no reason to start and stop it. I would say give it a few months to 4 months or so to see if you're going to get benefit out of it, okay? These are not going to give immediate results, but sometimes they can, all right? But give it some time, basically. There is a company that has started making these peptides in oral formulations, because most of them have been available only as injectable, but they are now making them in oral form, and that is a company called Integrated Peptides. They make this BPC 157. They also are out of stock right now, but they make a few others. They make something called TB4 Frag Plus, which is a peptide that's made by the thymus gland that can help to balance that Th1, Th2, for instance, okay? There's something called Cerebroprep that they make, also known as cerebrolysin, which is a peptide that can help with thinking and neurologic function in the brain. They happen to be out of that right now. There's another one they make called KPV, which is a peptide that uses a few amino acid sequences of something called melanocyte stimulating hormone. But this KPV seems to have some good ability to balance out mast cell activation. All right, so these are just a variety of these. And I recently have started working with at least the BPC 157 in my practice, and I'll be reporting back to you as I see how they work. There's another group of peptides that are not available orally. You have to do injectable, but they're extremely expensive. I'm still working with these to see what the final jury is going to be on them. Okay, all right. Hope that gives you some useful information. Hello, Linda. Let's see. Does Lyme disease affect the limbic system? And if, how? What is your opinion on DRNS as a tool for recovery? Thank you. All right. So the limbic system, everyone, is a part of your brain. And yes, Lyme can lead to inflammation in that area of the brain. In fact, at the last ILADS meeting down in Florida, gosh, 3 weeks ago now. I guess it seems like it's getting to be longer than it was. They had a presentation on some ways of doing neuroimaging of various areas of the brain. And they were showing that for some people with Lyme, the limbic system is really lit up, basically. Okay, so it's probably due to inflammation in those areas. So yeah, it can affect that with inflammation, basically. Okay, and then what is your opinion on dynamic neural? See, I was punching up. I thought it was DNRS. I'm blanking here. As I said, I have a headache this evening. Let's see. Dynamic Neural Retraining System. It's Annie Hopper's program. Hold on, we're going to do a screen share here together. I want to make sure I got this right. All right, let's see here. All right, so it is Annie Hopper Dynamic Neural Retraining System. I think you had it done correctly. Let me go back here. DNRS. Yeah, no, you had it reversed. That's what was throwing me. You have DRNS, it's DNRS. Okay, I thought something wasn't looking right to me here. Anyhow, Annie Hopper's work is a way of trying to retrain an overactive, reactive brain to not be as charged up and affect your health in a negative way. I guess that's a simple way I would do it. It's a way of retraining neurologic holding patterns in the brain that have taken hold when you have chronic infection, that keep you from getting well, and that leave your body overreactive when things happen to it. And yeah, I've seen some really good results with that, where people have done this and it's kind of taken away the last symptoms they had of Lyme, for instance. I think it's something that could be very useful if you're a person that when you get into stressful situations that you see that your health declines quite a bit. I think it's particularly useful in those kind of situations as well, too. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question, Linda. Hello, Heather. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I told my Lyme doctor that I'm concerned about mold exposure. He checked my C4A and mine was over 1,000. Normal is 0 to 600. Does this always indicate mold illness? Are there any other tests that should be done based off of these results? Thanks for doing this. All right. So remember tonight. Remember I was talking earlier about Th1 inflammation and Th2 inflammation. Okay. So if you're looking for markers that you may have too much Th2 inflammation, you can do a blood test for complement 4A, that's C4A, that's called complement 4A. You could also do another test for something called TGF beta 1, tissue growth factor beta 1, or human tissue growth factor beta 1, TGF beta 1. Both of those can be elevated if you have too much Th2. And where we tend to see the C4A elevated specifically is if you either have chronic Lyme or if you have chronic mold toxicity, you'll see that, okay? Also, you may see, if it's mold, you may also see TGF beta 1 being elevated as well too, okay? So it's not, just because it's elevated does not necessarily mean mold. It could be because of chronic Lyme, actually, all right? The way to see if you have a mold problem, actually, to me, but when you have Lyme, it all gets confusing. I know Dr. Shoemaker, who came up with his theories about chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is an inflammatory condition that develops after you have mold toxicity. He likes checking everyone for various chemicals like the TGF beta 1, complement 4A, VEGF, etc. But the problem with Shoemaker's approach is he relies on those as a means of, if he sees that those are elevated, then he says it's due to mold. The problem is if you have chronic Lyme, Lyme can trigger the same kind of inflammatory situation as well too. So when I see those kind of elevations, I'm thinking either mold or Lyme. to help see if mold may be an underlying problem of it. I think the better way to look for mold is to do your urine mold toxin testing or urine mycotoxin testing. And the lab that I like to use that is I like working with a lab called Real Time Labs out of Texas. I like doing their urine mycotoxin test. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Heather. Thanks for that question. Hello, Ken. Let's see. Marty, what is your current thinking on Lyme having the flu vaccine this year? So let's just talk about flu vaccine and then we'll talk about this year. So one of the things that we tend to see with flu vaccine is that people with Lyme tend to get worse. Their Lyme disease tends to get worse, and it tends to get worse for a bit of time, actually, okay? Historically, when we didn't have COVID around, I suggested in some of my writings and some of my discussions is that for a lot of people, it may not be worth getting the flu vaccine because of the decline they're going to get with their Lyme, okay? All right. But you also need to be aware that and I made that statement also knowing that in most years, the flu vaccine only works about 50% of the time, okay? So it's not the most workable vaccine. I mean, as you know, the COVID vaccine works 90% of the time, all right, for instance, okay? So my argument in the past before we had COVID was that you're taking a risk of getting a decline in your Lyme for something that only works 50% of the time. Now, that was a general comment, okay? You have to look at what's happening with the flu of the season. And if the flu of the season is one that's causing a lot of death, then I think that switches the equation in most years, and you need to start thinking about probably getting the flu vaccine. Also, if you are somebody 65 years of age and older who will have a hard time handling the flu if you get it, and you have a greater chance of death from the flu, I think even if you have Lyme, probably get the flu vaccine, okay? If you are somebody that has a lot of immunosuppression, meaning you're the type of Lyme that you get every virus that comes along and you have really hard times recovering from it, you might want to get the flu vaccine, all right? Okay, then what about now? So that's the $1 million question, all right? So, you know, the public health authorities are calling for people to get the flu vaccine because they don't want to have a bunch of people showing up in hospitals that could have been avoided. Well, they're already full with people that are in there because of COVID. That's why it's being called for to get the flu vaccine now, is really to help limit damage to the health resources that we have, basically. Last year, because everyone was masking so much, we had a very light flu season. This year, it's not clear to me yet. And to see, and I haven't looked at the data on this one yet, and I apologize for you on this, we would need to see how bad the flu season was in South America to get an idea of whether we're going to have a bad flu season up here. And I haven't done that yet. I need to go look and see. So we get our flu out of South America. So if they just came out of their winter months, right? We're going into our winter months. So they've already had the flu that's coming at us, basically. So we could get an idea. If they had a bad flu season down there, then we might want to think about getting the flu vaccine up here. But if they didn't have a bad flu season, I would lean towards holding off on it for right now, okay? Those are my thoughts. Okay, now, I don't know you, and I don't know every other you that's in my webinar. So I encourage you to talk to your physicians to find out what's the best thing for you to do, okay? But I just wanted to give you, those are the kind of things that I would talk through with my patients, all right? All right. Good luck to you, Ken. Listen, guys, I'm having a hard time here. My headache is just growing. It's turning into a full-on migraine here. I apologize for this, but I need to go home and take care of myself tonight. I will get this brief recording that I just did out to you tomorrow morning, but I'm going to end the webinar here early tonight. So please sign up for next week. I don't anticipate having a bad headache next week. And I apologize for the short version this evening. But do take a look at your email tomorrow morning, somewhere between 9 and 9:30, and I hope to have the recording out to you by that time. Okay? All right. Good night, everyone.